Welcome back to our channel. Today I'm going to explain a movie called Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Get comfortable. The film is about a boy who, gaining superpowers from a spider bites, Miles Morales protects the city as Spider-Man. Soon, he meets alternate versions of himself and they come from other dimension and get embroiled in an epic battle to save the multiverse. In a film, Miles Morales has just started at a new school and is struggling to fit in. The film starts with Peter Parker introducing himself as we know him, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. By now, everybody knows how big he is. After that, Spidey is proud of his role as Spider-Man, saving New York and getting his own comics, cereal, and album. Later, we meet Brooklyn teen Miles Morales as he is getting ready to start attending a private school. He lives with his father Jefferson and mother Rio. Then, Miles goes around his neighborhood greeting his friends and tagging street signs with stickers he made. Jefferson, a cop, catches Miles and escorts him to school in his cruiser. As they ride to the school, they see a news report on Spider-Man, whom Jeff is not a fan of. Once they arrive, Jeff tells Miles he loves him, but Miles fails to say it back. Later, Jeff then uses his radio to force Miles in front of all the other students to say "I love you" back, embarrassing him. However, Miles gets into his schoolwork and meets Gwen Stacy, who doesn't immediately tell him who she is. He sneaks out of his dorm to visit his Uncle Aaron, who is Jefferson's brother and a black sheep due to his criminal activities. Then, Aaron tells Miles to do a shoulder touch to try and charm her, and the two go to the tunnels near the subway to do some graffiti. As Miles spray paints the walls, a radioactive glitching spider crawls up his leg and bites his hand, but he only lightly taps the spider off his hand before leaving with Aaron. Here the next day, Miles finds himself feeling differently, hearing a voice in his head and sweating profusely. After that, he runs into Gwen and tries to do the shoulder touch, but gets his hand stuck on her shoulder and hair. Later, when he tries to go back to his room, he is found by a security guard and hides in the man's office. Miles then climbs out the window and runs into the streets, amazed by his newfound powers and abilities. Although, Miles later goes to the tunnel where the spider bit him and finds it glitching again. Spider-Man enters as he's being pursued by the Green Goblin and they fight beneath Fisk Industries. We saw that Spidey is badly injured and Miles tries to help him, but Spidey tells him to hide before giving him a drive to shut down the collider. Their other people, Kingpin, Goblin, and the Prowler gather around Spidey and remove his mask. Miles begs Kingpin not to restart the collider. But this angers Kingpin and he kills Spider-Man by slamming his fists down onto him. Miles runs back home where his parents find him and he runs to hug Jefferson. Eventually, the news breaks out that Spider-Man is dead and that he was Peter Parker. New Yorkers everywhere are devastated. There, Miles buys a costume before attending a memorial service for Peter, with many other fans attending dressed as the Wallcrawler. We saw that Mary Jane delivers a eulogy for her husband while Aunt May stands solemnly in the back. At one moment, Miles is inspired by MJ's words to take up the mantle as Spider-Man, but is unsure of how to use his powers. There, he pays a visit to Peter's grave, just as he is spotted by another man, Peter B. Parker. Peter tells Miles that he has been Spider-Man for years and is now an adult, but has lost Aunt May and Mary Jane. For that, he became depressed and gained weight, and then the collider turned on, pulling him into this dimension. After finding Miles, he gets knocked unconscious, leading Miles to try and swing away with him as the police go after them, only to end up crashing on the streets as people walk past them. Later, Miles brings Peter somewhere for safety. He questions Peter as to how it's possible that he's there alive, when he correctly guesses the alternate dimension theory. Then we saw, Miles takes out the drive that the Peter of his universe gave him, but it's broken. Peter frees himself and takes the broken goober to try and find a new one so that he can get back home. And this it feels as being in this dimension causes him to glitch and be unstable. However, before Peter can head off on his own, Miles guilts him into letting him join so that they can make things right together. After that, Miles and Peter go to Alchemax Labs to steal data from the collider, but are attacked by Kingpin and his henchman Tombstone. We learn Kingpin's motive is to reunite with his wife Vanessa and son Richard, who were killed by Spider-Man years earlier. At a moment, Miles and Peter manage to sneak into the lab and find the computer, just as Kingpin and his scientist are outside. While the scientist is impressed to find Spider-Man alive and reveals her name to be Dr. Olivia Octavius, aka DOCOCK. Thereafter that, she reveals her mechanical tentacles as she attacks Peter, but Miles grabs the computer so they can go. Then, they are chased by scientists out of the lab and into the woods, but Doc Ock gets webbed up by a third spider-person. Later, she tells Miles and Peter how she saved her father's life but couldn't save Peter. The three of them then head out of the woods to get away from Kingpin, who is displeased to find there are 2 more Spider-Men around. After that, Miles, Peter, and Gwen go to Aunt May's home to find out that Peter is from another dimension. There, they meet Spider-Man Noir, Penny Parker, and Peter Porker, who were pulled from their own dimensions and into Miles's world. Later, they plan to shut down the collider with a new goober, but Miles says it has to be him since this is his dimension. When Peter tries to back him up by stating the cool powers that Miles has, he is unable to turn them on and Miles leaves the cave. After that, Miles goes to Aaron's home for help, but encounters Prowler, who reveals himself to be Aaron. Miles tries to escape, but is chased by Aaron throughout the city until he manages to evade him. Later, back at Aunt May's house, Miles reunites with the other Spider people to tell them that his uncle is working for Kingpin. Unfortunately, Miles has led Prowler there, along with Doc Ock, Goblin, Tombstone, and Scorpion. The villains attack, and the Spider people spring into action. Even Aunt May gets in on it by defending her home. Prowler goes after Miles and chases him to the rooftop. Kingpin orders Prowler to finish Miles off until Miles takes off his mask to reveal himself to his uncle. Then, Aaron is mortified that he almost killed his nephew. As he backs down, Kingpin shoots Aaron in the back and then goes for Miles, but he swings out of there with his uncle. Later, he takes Aaron to an alley where he is dying. Miles blames himself for what happened, but Aaron encourages him to keep pushing forward. After that, Jefferson finds Miles over Aaron's body, sending Miles fleeing. Jeff then sees his brother and breaks down. Then, Miles returns to his dorm where the other Spider people meet up with him. They cause his roommate to pass out from seeing them crawl up the wall. Moreover, Peter webs Miles up to his chair and takes the goober to go stop the collider, telling Miles it's for his safety. After they leave, Jeff comes up to Miles's dorm outside, but he can't respond thanks to the web. Then, Jeff tells him about Aaron and only wishes for Miles to be okay. Miles then musters up the strength to bring out his power to free himself. Miles goes back to Aunt May's and gets the original Spider-Man suit, which he spray paints with dark colors. He then tests his powers more confidently as he swings around the city. In the meantime, the other Spider people find Kingpin's gala where they are able to sneak in because the staff are wearing Spidey masks. Then, Peter sees MJ and tried to express his guilt toward leaving her, even though she doesn't know it's him or what he's talking about. Later, they proceed down to where the collider is, but Kingpin's henchmen find them and proceed to attack. Miles swings in and joins his comrades as they fight back. To make things worse, the collider is activated, causing another earthquake across the city as dimensions start warping together. After all that, Spider-Man Noir takes on Tombstone, Penny and SP fights Goblin, and Spider-Ham beats up Scorpion with a cartoon mallet. Doc Ock goes after Gwen and Peter, and Doc Ock is plowed by an interdimensional truck. Eventually, Miles then goes after the collider, but Kingpin starts hitting back hard. Jefferson enters the area, and Miles uses his power to blast Kingpin away and then send him webbed up toward the button to shut down the collider for good. While Gwen affirms her friendship with Miles before going home. Later at outside, Miles calls Jeff to let him know he's okay. He then approaches him as Spider-Man and hugs him, letting him know he's doing a good job, but not letting his dad know who he really is. Later at end, Jeff then finds Kingpin webbed up and prepped for arrest. However, Miles now assumes his regular school duties while also taking on his role as the new Spider-Man, earning a number of new fans across the city. Meanwhile, in Peter's dimension, he heads off to patch things up with MJ. As Miles settles in his room for a nap, a dimensional portal opens and he hears Gwen's voice calling to him. We can say there is a dedication for Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. At the end, we see Miguel O'Hara, who is Spider-Man 2099, learns about the other Spider people from his assistant Lila. He travels to Earth 67, where he ends up in a weird pointing argument with the Spider-Man from the 60s cartoon. So, that was all from the video. Please, give us a suggestion of movies you want us to upload next. Thank you for watching and being part of our family. Just to let you know, we are posting videos every day for you. Please subscribe to give us more motivation, and you will not miss our daily video.